My name is Elena Harper. I grew up in a small American town where the family dinner table was not a place of comfort, but a battlefield. It was a long, polished slab of dark wood, and every night it felt like I was on trial. I learned early on that my words didn't matter much there. Silence became my shield. It was a heavy, lonely shield, but sometimes it was the only thing that could save me from the wounds they so casually inflicted. And in the end, that same silence would become my sword. The clinking of silverware against porcelain was the loudest sound at the table, a sound that always set my teeth on edge. It was Thursday night. The scent of roasted chicken, which I had picked up and paid for on my way home from work, filled the air. But no one ever asked where the food came from. It simply appeared, and I simply existed, a ghost at their feast. Before we dive into this, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? My father, a man whose approval I had chased my entire life, sat at the head of the table. He carved the chicken with a practiced air of authority, his eyes never quite meeting mine. My mother, Catherine, sat opposite him, her smile a thin, painted line that never reached her eyes, especially when she looked at me. Then there were my siblings, Mark, my older brother, the golden child. He was a vice president at a local bank, a title he wore like a crown. And my younger sister Chloe, the beautiful, spoiled princess of the family who had just gotten engaged to a man with a trust fund. And then there was me. Elena, the quiet one, the boring one, the extra chair. Mark took a large bite of chicken and pointed his fork at me. "So, Elena," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "close any big deals on whatever it is you do, selling paper clips, answering phones?" Chloe giggled, a tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Be nice, Mark. She's what is it again? An administrative assistant?" She said the title like it was a contagious disease. "I'm in property management, Chloe. We've been over this," I said, my voice barely a whisper. My own plate was mostly untouched. My stomach was a tight knot of anxiety. Right, property management," Mark sneered. He leaned back in his chair. "Honestly, I have to ask, what do you even bring to this family? Anything? You just sit there. You don't have an interesting job, you're not married, you don't have any exciting news, you're just present." The words hit me like physical blows. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him that my boring job paid for the new furnace last winter when Dad's pension didn't cover it. That my paycheck had covered Chloe's credit card debt last month so her fiancé wouldn't find out. That I was the one who drove Mom to her doctor's appointments because everyone else was too busy. But I said nothing. I just stared at my plate. My mother laughed. It was a light, airy sound that cut me deeper than Mark's words. "Oh, Mark, don't be so harsh," she said, though her eyes were dancing with amusement. "She's like a quiet house guest who eats the leftovers. She doesn't cause any trouble. A house guest. In my own home. The home I helped keep running." I looked at the food on their plates. The roasted chicken, the creamy mashed potatoes, the green beans almondine. I had bought all of it. A quiet voice in my head screamed, "I paid for this. I am feeding you while you insult me." I bit my tongue, the metallic taste of blood a sharp anchor in the swirling sea of my humiliation. I focused on a small scratch in the wood of the table, tracing it with my eyes. I would not cry. I would not give them the satisfaction. I had been sitting at this table, in this exact spot, for 28 years, and I had never felt more alone. This wasn't new. It was a story told over and over, in 1,000 different ways. My entire life had been lived in the shadows of my siblings. Mark was the smart one, with trophies on the mantelpiece. Chloe was the pretty one, with dance photos covering the walls. My successes were quiet, practical, and therefore invisible. I remembered my high school graduation. Mark had gone to a state university, and his graduation party was a massive backyard barbecue with half the town invited. When I graduated from community college, my parents took us all to a chain restaurant for dinner. My father spent the entire meal talking about a promotion Mark had just gotten. No one even asked me what my plans were. The small scholarship I'd worked so hard for went unmentioned. While they were paying for Mark's fraternity dues and Chloe's ballet lessons, I was flipping burgers and stocking shelves to support myself. I paid for my own books, my own car, my own way. I thought it would make them proud. Instead, they saw it as proof that I didn't need them. And if I didn't need them, they didn't need to see me. Every holiday I was seated at the corner, the forgotten edge. The nickname started when I was 16. We had family over, and there weren't enough chairs. My mother, without a second thought, said, "Oh, Elena can sit at the card table in the corner. She's the extra chair anyway." Everyone laughed. The name stuck. The extra chair. It was a joke to them. To me, it was a constant reminder of my place. Back at the dinner table, the humiliation was still hanging in the air. I had hoped they would just forget about me again. But Chloe wasn't done. She looked at me, a fake pity in her eyes, and sighed dramatically. "You know, Elena," she said, her voice syrupy sweet, "maybe if you had actually done something with your life, been a little more ambitious, you wouldn't look so pathetic sitting here." Pathetic. The word echoed in the sudden silence. It landed right in the center of my chest. Then came the laughter, my father's short, sharp laugh, Mark's snort, my mother's thin, empty smile. That was it. That was the moment something inside me broke. It wasn't a loud shatter, but a quiet, clean snap. The part of me that had spent years craving their approval just died. My hands were trembling under the table. I folded my napkin, placed it neatly beside my plate, and stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor. 4 pairs of eyes turned to me, surprised. "Excuse me," I said. My voice was eerily calm, steady. "Where are you going? You barely touched your food," my mother said, annoyed. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. "I've lost my appetite," I said simply. I walked out of the dining room, my back straight. With each step, I could feel the burning humiliation solidifying into something hard and cold. It was determination. I went up to my old bedroom and closed the door. There was only a cold, clear thought in my mind. They will never respect me. Not unless they are forced to. Not unless I make them. What my family didn't know was that my life was not pathetic. It was a carefully constructed fortress, built in the silence they so easily ignored. My boring job in property management was just the beginning. It taught me the nuts and bolts of the real estate industry. While they were living their lives, I was spending my evenings and weekends devouring books on investment, studying market trends, and saving every single penny. My first investment was terrifying. It was a tiny, run-down duplex. I spent 6 months renovating it myself. I learned how to lay tile from online videos. I spackled walls, painted cabinets, and fixed leaky faucets until my hands were raw. My family thought I was just being a homebody. They had no idea I was building my future. When I finally rented it out, the first check that came in the mail felt like a miracle. I took that small profit and rolled it into another property, then another. Over the years, my portfolio grew from duplexes to apartment buildings to commercial properties. I built a thriving, multi-million-dollar real estate business, all while they thought I was answering phones. I never told them. I knew they wouldn't see me. They would see a bank account. Their mockery would be replaced by a greedy, false affection that would have been even more insulting. So I kept my silence. My silence was my power. And now, it was about to become my weapon. I didn't sleep that night. The humiliation had cooled into a calm, focused anger. Crying was pointless. Arguing was futile. They understood only money and appearances. So, I would speak to them in the only language they understood. At 7:00 a.m. the next morning, I sent a simple text message to the family group chat. It read, "Dinner's on me, tomorrow night at 7, dress well." The replies came almost instantly. My mother, "Oh, Elena, that's so sweet of you. Are you trying to make up for being so cold last night? Of course, we'll be there." Chloe, "Ooh, where are we going? Somewhere nice, I hope. I have a new dress I want to wear." Mark, "About time you contributed something. Don't pick a cheap place." They were so predictable, so smug. They thought I was crawling back to them. Let them think that. Let their pride swell one last time before I shattered it. The next evening, I stood waiting on the stone steps of the estate. It was my most recent acquisition, a magnificent stone manor set on 50 acres of rolling hills just outside of town. It was known as the Blackwood Estate. A long, winding driveway lined with ancient oak trees led up to the house. As the clock struck 7, I saw the familiar headlights of my father's sedan making its way up the drive. I smoothed down my simple but elegant black dress and waited. The car pulled up. They got out, their expressions a mixture of awe and bewilderment. "Elena? What is this?" my father asked, his voice tight with suspicion. "Did you get a job here as a caterer or something?" "Is this some kind of joke?" Mark muttered. "We're going to be late for our reservation." I smiled. It was a calm, genuine smile. For the first time, I held all the power. "There's no reservation," I said, gesturing towards the enormous carved wooden doors behind me. "We're eating here," Chloe scoffed. "Here? Elena, this is the old Blackwood place. It's worth millions. You can't just have dinner here." I looked at each of them, at their doubt, their arrogance. Then I delivered the line I had been rehearsing in my head for 24 hours. "You're right," I said. "You can't just have dinner here." I paused. "But I can. It's my house." Silence. Complete, stunned, absolute silence. My father's jaw dropped. My mother's hand flew to her pearls. It was Mark who spoke first, his voice a choked whisper. This isn't your house." It was a desperate denial of reality. I just smiled again. "Welcome to my home," I said, opening the grand doors. "Dinner is almost ready." I led them through the grand foyer, its marble floors gleaming under a crystal chandelier. I took them into the formal dining hall. The room was breathtaking. A 30-foot-long mahogany table was set with glowing candles, fresh flowers, and the finest china. At the far end of the room, a fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace. 2 professionally dressed servers entered with champagne. "Good evening, Ms. Harper," the head server said with a polite nod. Ms. Harper. The title seemed to stun them more than the house itself. I was no longer just Elena. As we sat down, the servers began to bring out the first course. Seared scallops with a saffron risotto. The same people who had mocked me over roasted chicken were now being served a meal fit for royalty in my home. They ate in stiff, awkward silence. Finally, Chloe couldn't take it anymore. Her voice was a small whisper. "How? How could you possibly afford all this?" I took a delicate sip of my champagne. "While you were all talking," I said, my voice even and calm, "I was working. While you were laughing, I was learning. While you mocked, I built." My words fell into the silent room. My father cleared his throat. "Elena, I don't understand. Your job? It can't pay for this." "My job gave me the knowledge," I replied. "My ambition did the rest. I own an investment company, Harper Properties. We own and manage over 40 buildings across the state." Mark choked on his water. "Harper Properties? The Harper Properties? I've heard of them. That's you?" "Yes, Mark," I said. "That's me." His face, usually so arrogant, was pale. My mother forced a bright, trembling smile. "Oh, darling, why didn't you ever tell us? We would have been so proud." "Would you have been?" I asked softly. "Or would you have just seen a new source of funding for your lives?" Her smile died. I stood up, holding my champagne flute. "I'd like to propose a toast," I said. They all looked up at me. "To family," I began, my voice clear and strong. "Who taught me one of the most valuable lessons of my life. They taught me that hunger isn't always for food. Sometimes it's for respect. And they taught me that the only way to satisfy that hunger is to feed it yourself. To family." I raised my glass. No one moved. My success was the only rebuttal I needed. Their pride, once so monumental, now lay in shattered pieces on the floor of my dining hall. The rest of the dinner passed in a surreal, awkward haze. They tried to save face. My father started asking clumsy questions about market capitalization. Mark attempted to offer me some unsolicited big brotherly financial advice, which was laughable. Chloe kept complimenting the house, each compliment a desperate plea. I was polite, but the burning need for their approval was gone. The power dynamic in our family had been permanently redrawn. For 28 years, I had been the extra chair at their table. Now they were guests at mine. When the evening was over, I walked them to the door. They mumbled their goodbyes, their eyes avoiding mine. As they got into their car and drove away, back into the world where they used to be the center of my universe, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had not destroyed them. I had simply revealed them, and in doing so, I had finally set myself free. I stood on those stone steps for a long time. I learned something that night. The loudest revenge isn't shouting. It isn't confrontation. It's the quiet, undeniable unveiling of a life they swore you could never have. It's the silence that follows when they realize they were wrong about everything. My family's mockery was a cage they tried to build around me, but they gave me the very tools I needed to break free. Every insult was a motivation. Every dismissal was a reason to work harder in secret. They thought my silence was weakness, but it was my greatest strength. It was the space where I grew, where I built, where I became the architect of my own life. If you've ever been made to feel small by the very people who were supposed to build you up, do not let their laughter define you. Don't let their words become the blueprint for your life. Take that pain, that humiliation, and turn it into fuel. Build your own house. It may not be a mansion of stone and marble. It could be a career, a talent, or simply a quiet, unshakable sense of your own self-worth. Build it in silence. Build it with dedication. Build it for yourself. And one day when you are ready, you can invite them in. You won't have to say a word. The life you have built will be the only answer you'll ever need. Let your success be your voice, your peace be your victory, and your silence be the most powerful sound they have ever heard. If this story touched you, subscribe, like, and share your own story of turning pain into power in the comments. Let's remind the world, silence can be strength.